Well, hello. We wanted to do a call tonight about depression, anxiety, and the gut-brain axis. My name is Becky Page, and I'll be introducing a few other friends tonight. What we really wanted to focus on was the fact that even though science has been aware of the gut-brain axis for years now, which is just what's happening in your digestive tract has a direct impact on your brain and your brain chemistry. So many people aren't aware of the connection, and millions of people each year seek treatment and help for depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety is a very common set of diagnoses, and we wanted to get together tonight to share our stories. But we also wanted to share with you about how we found hope through the Plexus line of products and through improving our gut health. But before we get started too far, I want to issue a disclaimer, and that is that it's our intent just to share our stories. We're not trying to diagnose you tonight. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, and these products are not intended to diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. So now that I've got that shared, I want to start tonight by introducing you to one of my favorite friends, Shannon Marshall. We grew up together. We've known each other since about 14, have been friends through the years. Shannon contacted me almost 5 years ago, and her initial reason for reaching out was like lots of just good old American women. She wanted some weight loss. And as we began to talk through her situation and her issues, it became apparent that she had a lot more going on, namely some severe and crippling clinical anxiety. So Shannon, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share your story.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So like Becky said, I reached out to her. I trusted her as a friend, somebody that I'd known for a long time. And I had just had my second child. And I thought, well, I'll just pick up this weight loss stuff, which is that's all I thought it was. First couple of months, I said, I don't think this is working. And she said, are you using it consistently? And I said, no, not really. And she said, try working it consistently. And so, I did lose some weight, but what I reported back to her was, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I haven't had a panic attack I don't even know. I had not at that point in at least a year, not had a panic attack, every other day. In fact, I was going to the hospital weekly for them. So I knew that I needed to get a hold of that. I didn't have any idea that this was going to help with that. As we had more conversations, and I opened up to her that I was not only struggling with anxiety and some depression, but also with substance abuse. So, we have been able to, she was immediately able to stop and say, hey, let's focus a little bit more on your gut and some of the damage that has gone on there. Not that this will stop your drinking or your addiction. It wasn't anything like that. But I think she was recognizing that there was a whole lot with the meds that I had gone on and some of the anxiety, the depression, the whole cornucopia of things that were going on. We needed to start at the very root to take care of that.
And so Shannon, as you started to address your gut health, tell me kind of how your story evolved from there, because you've got a pretty incredible story.
Well, I think I described it to you as the only way, I'm a very visual person. So, it's almost like walking up a gravel road and then moving on to a paved street. And that's how I felt. I felt like before I was kind of clunky, and all of a sudden things just felt smooth. And it wasn't this overnight wham, here's what I feel. It was just this feeling of release, and it was the anxiety was lifting. Most noticeably was that I had not had any panic attacks, and those were incredibly debilitating. And so as it started, I tend to detox very heavily on any change in products. It's just, some of the genetic stuff that I deal with. And so it was like, Becky, I'm going to the bathroom more. Becky, I'm feeling bloated. I don't know if this is going to work. And she's like, just keep going, just keep going. And this is a detox phase. And so all of those things, as I'm listening to her, because I'm trusting her and her instruction, and I did it. And I'm so thrilled that I did, because all of those things, I started to get a lot more clarity. But I would say like the biggest thing that I come back to is really just that lifted, that the explanation I give of that lifted of the heavy feeling that you have when you're just constantly under that weight of anxiety.
Tell us a story just to illustrate how intense your anxiety was at this point. Give us a story that will help us understand what you were going through.
So, and she's in here right now. Actually, you need to go to bed.
Real life.
So my husband and I were living in DC at the time, both working incredibly stressful jobs. And this one is just so seared in my brain, because it was that point where, my husband doesn't really struggle with anxiety, which I find so strange, because I feel like everybody struggles with it in some way, but he really didn't understand. He certainly didn't understand panic attacks. And he was with my daughter downstairs, and I was laying in bed, and I could feel a panic attack coming on. And I said, my daughter's name is Mia. And I said, you need to go get Mia and bring her up here so that so I can say goodbye to her. And he said, I'm not no, I'm not. And I said, no, I'm serious. I'm dying. You need to. And I just knew, like, there was no convincing me otherwise. And for those of you who've had a panic attack, you know that that's how crippling it can be. And he said, there is something going on here that we have got to address, because I can't just keep bringing our daughter upstairs. She's 3. Or 2 or 3 at the time. She's 3. I can't bring her upstairs for you to say your final goodbye to her. And I think that was really the pivot point of something that is something that's got to give.
When did you see the tipping point between just dealing with anxiety and then having it lean into the realization that you're really dealing with alcoholism?
Well, I think I knew very early and very steadfastly that I had a drinking problem. Like many addicts, I just kept thinking that I would be able to control it. If I can get my weight down, then I would be able to stop drinking, because that would cure the insecurity that I felt about having extra baby weight. Or if I could get rid of these panic attacks, then I wouldn't have to drink, because that was a lot of why I drank, because I was feeling so much anxiety. Yes. And so as those things kind of started to peel away, I was losing a little bit of weight. I was getting some of those. I actually lost the craving for alcohol. And because my addiction was what it was, it didn't matter if I liked the taste of it. Right. I was going to have it anyway. But I was like, I'm not craving that anymore, because it's the sugar and the wine that I was drinking all the time I just didn't have a taste or a craving for it. And so, which, let me just be very clear, that is not, Plexus helped with a lot of things. I have long been in recovery and worked my own program. And so that is a different story. But to be able to say that it was healing some things in me, and I was creating excuses to continue on with my addiction, but I could feel that there were some things that were really changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we want to be so clear tonight that we're not here to promote Plexus as a cure for any addiction. I do think that when you introduce into a recovery program a plan for like whole body, true biological health, that it can have a major impact on everything. So I'm glad you clarified that. Shannon, what else? What were you taking originally that you began to start to see a change in your daily mood?
For the longest time, there was going to be a long list if she was asking me what I was taking that was non-Plexus. Lots of recovery has gone in. But I started with the triplex. There are so many different aspects of your health that Plexus can address, and the line has grown obviously in the past 5 years to where we have very targeted products. And I can always say, yes, somebody, this is what I would recommend if this is what you're looking for. But to me, nothing beats that foundation of getting your blood sugar in balance and then your gut health really in check. I feel like setting that foundation allows for your body to accept the other positive changes that will come in.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to share?
I always, I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for you as my friend, but I'm always grateful to share. I think that's one of the best parts of, what we get to do is we get to spend time with each other, but we also really get to talk about how it's impacted us and get to see how it impacts the people that we work with. So I just love these opportunities, and thanks for bringing us together, Beck.
Thanks, Shannon. I want to next introduce my friend and teammate, Amy Saenz. And to tell you a little bit about Amy, we met several years ago and just got to know and love her for being a sincere professional. And she can tell you a little bit about that. But just as someone who is a mom who works full-time, very dedicated career, and as a fellow previous full-time, a mom that worked full-time outside the home, I can say that I know exactly what it's like to have a full-time job, but to have a child where your heart can never really rest or relax while you're worried about that child. So with that, I want to introduce Amy and have her share her story. She reached out to me last year, and I was excited to hear the results of what happened with the use of Plexus products for your family. So Amy, why don't you share your story?
So last year, this time, Becky's right, I had reached out to my Plexus friends, which is one of the biggest benefits of this business in the first place, is having those friends that know what we're going through. And I reached out to them for prayer. It wasn't even really at first, what can I do? It was, I need your prayers because we are going through something terrible and Satan was trying to get at us for sure. My daughter was 10 at the time, and she'd always had anxiety issues. Nothing dangerous, but she didn't like us going anywhere. I mean, she couldn't even stay at my mom's or my in-laws without calling us about 5 times an hour. When are you coming back to get me? When are you coming back to get me? What are you doing? How long am I going to be here? Like, she couldn't spend the night anywhere. She missed out on so many things that little girls should be able to do at that age. And that was always hard for us to begin with. But then one day she says, I feel like I need to text my friends that I'm going to shoot them. And I'm like, what'd you say? What? I'm sorry. What? And she said it again. And she said, just like that, a boy had done this at the middle school. And he got arrested. It was right after the Florida shooting. And she said, my mind is telling me that I have to do this, but I don't want to. And she starts crying. I'm like, well, you just don't. I mean, I've always been that way. Like, it's logical, right? You just don't do that. Like, don't get the iPad. You don't touch the iPad. You don't text that, period. Well, we got home from soccer and she comes in and she starts bawling and says, I did it. I said, what'd you do? She said, I text my friends. It's like, oh no. So I had to go text the parents and explain what was going on. And then, we're like, yeah, you got to lose the iPad, no more of that. And then the next day it was something else. Like, I need to lock myself in the closet. She locked herself in the closet when we weren't paying attention. I mean, not the closet, the attic. And all of a sudden you hear her screaming from the attic. And we're like, why did you do that? Well, my mind is telling me that I had to and I couldn't resist. Well, that's not, it's dangerous. It was, feeling the need to get in the dryer, and not understanding why she felt like she had to do that. Like, she couldn't control it. It was horrible. It was horrible for my husband and I to watch her. It was horrible for her because she couldn't figure out why her mind was telling her to do something she knew was crazy. I mean, we got to a point where we would just say, working with a therapist at the time, just like, what's making you do that? We even made up a name for the anxiety and the OCD. Like, tell Buddy that's stupid.
Right.
I mean, it was ridiculous. And,
And
you know,
Amy, how soon did you know that it was OCD, that it was anxiety inducing OCD?
I think the therapist helped us kind of put two and two together, that it was anxiety driven. I knew it was OCD in the way that she was having to do things so many times. She
Right.
tried to put her head inside of a drawer, and she would have to do that like 5 times or however many times, no matter how dumb she thought it was or how dangerous. So we couldn't leave her alone. So she would go to school. We bought her one of those watches that was like a phone, not an iPhone watch, but, just the gizmo or whatever, so that we could always have that connection with her should she need to have that connection with us. We had to make sure that our parents and other friends that were very close to us that wouldn't expose her in such a way that would embarrass her, but would know what was going on so that they could help keep her safe. We couldn't go anywhere. Like for spring break that year, we went to my parents' lake house, and I had to make sure they were all aware of what was going on because we were at a very critical point right at that time. And it was so hard. We cried so much in this house, and I don't think I have ever prayed as hard as I was praying at that time, ever. I mean, I laid my hands on her every night and just prayed and prayed and prayed for some kind of answer. And before Plexus, we always thought when she started getting any kind of OCD type thing, which she'd always gotten when she got strep, which was like a hand washing type of thing, or having to turn the lights on and off so many times. And it was always strep related. So that was my first thought. This is going to be strep related. It has to be easy fix antibiotics. We did the blood work. She didn't have strep, but she had other kinds of, I guess, microorganisms is what they said. And they put her on a month of antibiotics. I just started thinking, I've been learning so much about gut health. Plexus has been such a blessing. I've been kind of hogging these products to myself. I'm feeling great. Maybe I need to talk to the pediatrician about this. So, I called him, and he's awesome. Not once did I have to go in and see him. He would talk to me on the phone after hours and go through things with me. I said, I think I need to put her on probiotics, and I just want to make sure that's okay. And he said, I think that's perfect. And he, said, I have some for you. I said, no, I think I have a good one. And so we talked through it, and I started her on Probio 5 because I knew something was there that was not working right for her. And based on the amount of time she'd taken antibiotics, I thought, well, this could be a problem. Maybe we need to break down some of the bad stuff. So started with Probio 5 and gave that a month. Started to see a little bit. I'm not going to say we saw immediate. It's just not like that.
Sure.
But enough that I was like, okay, we're going to keep on this track. And then we started her on Vital Biome in the morning. So she was doing those two things, and she is on a half a tablet, the smallest amount of Zoloft. And that was necessary. And that was something I had to fight it myself against, just that stigma. But I think with certain things, you just have to do that. It was dangerous, or go this route, work with it. And, our doctor had even said, and the therapist, these are all tools to help your mind and body learn how to cope and deal with it. And, a lot of us, I think everybody has anxiety. Certain people are able to cope with that anxiety in a better way. And you don't want to get rid of it completely because it's what keeps you from doing things you don't want to do or shouldn't do. But when it gets so out of control, it keeps you from doing the things that you need to do for your life that are so important, especially for a 10-year-old little girl, for her development. And so to see what changing her gut health has been able to do, it is so incredibly life-changing. I mean, this time last year, she couldn't be left alone. She freaked out about every test. She, was paranoid about, we couldn't go to the grocery store. We couldn't do anything. This year, she's made a decision to go away for a week at camp this summer. sleepaway
makes me
camp,
so
not just
happy.
the everyday camp. And that's huge. She's never done that before. She has made the decision and she auditioned yesterday for the talent show to be the host. She would have never gotten on a stage in front of anybody before. In fact, when we did a Disney cruise when she was younger, we got called from the kids club because she wasn't about to get on the stage on the Disney cruise. So this is just a very, very, very big deal for her. And she knows it, that, she's going to be taking these probiotics forever, because why would she want to stop doing that? It's just been life changing for her and then for us.
Your story could almost bring me to tears, because I think, we have a saying in therapy that you're only as happy as your saddest child. And uniquely just how stressful that is to have a child who's struggling and to need to know where do I start? What tools do I use? And what I love that you shared is that you guys didn't just only do Plexus products, but you also just didn't only do psychiatry. And I think, my heart is that the world of psychology and psychiatry would be married to the world of functional health and gut health and holistic health, and that we would be able to use all of our tools in the toolbox, but also to understand a little bit more about where depression and anxiety forms, where it starts in the body. And I wanted to share a little bit of my story tonight. I was previously a licensed professional counselor and supervisor in the state of Texas for almost 15 years, and owned a private counseling practice there, and enjoyed many years of being a therapist. It was a dream job. But beyond that, my interest in depression and anxiety is very personal. When I was in my early 20s, I experienced a very severe and chronic clinical depression. It was almost 2 years. And it kind of came to its climax when I planned my own suicide in my early 20s. And I was someone who you never would have known was depressed, because, like so many of us, I carried that stigma. I don't think I knew I was depressed. As crazy as it sounds, you'd wonder, well, how can you plan your own death and not know you're depressed? I literally did not have the language at that age to put terms on what I was feeling. I knew I had a ton of self-hatred. I was exhausted. Ironically, I was also taking a weight loss pill. These were like back in the day when you could go buy, I think the name of my pill was called Zenadrin, and you could buy it at any Walgreens or what's the vitamin store, GNC. I thought, oh, I'm going to lose some weight. And what I didn't realize is that I was on a really heavy duty form of speed, actually, legal speed. And it was giving me massive anxiety. But again, I never had a word for that. I just knew that my heart raced all day. I felt exhausted. I couldn't sleep. Obviously, my gut was a train wreck, but I didn't know. I went through a long, long, long depression because I felt so guilty for being depressed. As a clinician, I can tell you that one of the first signs of depression is extreme guilt. So for me, the good news is that I got help. I asked for help. I started talking about it, had some really wonderful people in my life, including my parents, that made sure I got wonderful therapy. And that therapy changed my life so incredibly that I then went and sought this out as a career. I will say that 3 more times in life, in fact, after each child, I went through a postpartum depression. But at the time, I was geared with so many more tools in my tool belt. What I didn't know after my first 2 babies was how important gut health was to treating depression and anxiety. So I want to tell you a little bit, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I don't want to vomit science all over you, and I'm most definitely not an expert in this field. I just have enough curiosity to be dangerous. But you need to know that between your brain and your gut, there is a major nerve, travels down the back of your esophagus, and it's called the vagus nerve. And we refer to it as a biodirectional highway. So what this means is that your brain and your microbiome or your gut is talking nonstop. There's nonstop passages going up and down the vagus nerve. Your gut is often referred to as your second brain. It's where almost 90% of the body's serotonin, which is that natural relaxing hormone, is made. And because your gut and your brain are always talking, it means that when we're under seasons of stress, it affects both our mental health, but it also affects our digestive health, which is why it's like how we refer to it getting butterflies, which is actually a huge hormone dump straight from your brain when your cortisol levels jump straight down into your gut. So there is that connection. By the way, you're going to hear me say microbiome. That just refers to your body's unique amount of diverse bacteria, either diverse or not diverse, but you want to have a good diversity of microbes or microbacteria in your gut. And as you heard Amy talk about, her daughter had been through strep and rounds of antibiotics. There's a lot of things like antibiotics that can affect your microbiome. Your microbiome is built when you're born. Basically, you get a huge amount of your microbiome through your mom, through your parents. But even when you pass through the vaginal canal, you pick up your mother's microbes there, as you do from breastfeeding. So there's a lot of things from birth to grave that can affect your microbiome. One of those is just daily oxidative stress, and the other is the average American diet, which is high in polysaturated fats and sugars and a lot of synthetics. So when you get a lot of toxins into your guts, what it does is it breaks down that good bacteria, and often you have a takeover of unhealthy bacteria. So I want to talk just a little bit about our gut health products. You heard Shannon mention what she called the triplex combo. It's a fancy name for 3 products. The first one is called Slim, and that is a drink that helps balance your blood sugar. So your blood sugar's connection to gut health is huge because your cravings affect what you eat. And when your blood sugar is more balanced, you're often prone to make healthier choices. But also your gut health talks to your hormones all day long, and the blood sugar hormone connection is huge. So your gut and your hormones interact together there based on your blood sugar. And if you constantly have insulin spikes throughout the day, either due to situations going on, biochemistry going on in your body, or from your food choices, then that's going to have effect on the microbes in your gut. Second product is called BioCleanse. It's simply a mixture of magnesium and vitamin C, and it helps oxygenate your bloodstream. It also helps your body keep that more alkaline pH balance, which is better for your body than acidic. And then the third product that I want to talk to you about is called Probio5. And you heard Amy mention that she got her daughter on that pretty quickly once her doctor recommended it. So Probio5, I want to be clear, it is a very low dose of CFUs, or colony forming units. And that just means how many bacteria actually get delivered down into your gut. So it's only 5 strains, and it's really low dose, 2 billion CFUs. It's not meant to give you a huge amount of diversity in your gut, but what it does have that I think is crucial and missing in so many other probiotics is it has antifungals and digestive enzymes. The reason antifungals are so important is that you can deliver as many positive bacteria to your gut as you want, but if you don't deal with an overgrowth of yeast or candida in your digestive tract, then you're in trouble that you can't get out of. So those antifungals, they go to work on the exoskeleton of the bugs. If you think about like a roach that runs across your kitchen floor, as gross as that is, if you stomp on it, you hear that very satisfying crunch, right? And that's because you've broken down their exoskeleton. The same is true for the microscopic microbes in your digestive tract. Antifungals begin to break that down, the biofilm of those bugs. They die, and then they need help exiting your digestive system. So Probio5 is just one of those products that when you use it, you know, and it has a massive impact on most people. It will cause detox. So I always encourage people to start slow and make sure you're talking with someone who knows how to get you started on it. And definitely hydrate, because you want to flush those toxins out. Finally, I want to talk about Vital Biome. Vital Biome is a power pack of a probiotic. You heard Amy mention that her daughter takes one in the morning. So different from ProBio 5, it has 8 diverse strains. It has 20 billion CFUs. So again, there's that powerful punch of lots of colony forming units with multiple different strains. Here's what's interesting is that 2 of those strains have been backed by clinical studies to prove that they do reduce the feelings of stress and they help reduce cortisol levels. So in a double-blind study, they found that 2 of the specific strains in Vital Biome had a massive impact on people dealing with depression and anxiety. I would tell you that if you are someone who has suffered from depression and anxiety, these products don't hurt. They're very different from a prescription medication. Prescription medication has an immediate change on your body's biochemistry, but these more natural gut health products are intended to get down to the root of the issue, which is what's happening in your gut. And while you might deal with some discomfort, and you should absolutely discuss the use of them with your prescribing doctor or whoever's providing your mental health care, I want to remind you that they're different. They work on different parts of the body. They have different purposes. And if you will take on your gut health, and not just with supplements, but also with food, whether you need to meet with a food allergist, someone who specializes in food allergies, or a functional doc, I promise you will not regret working on your gut health, especially as a means to improve your mood. I, even as a professional, when I began these products 5 years ago, I still dealt with what I would just call generalized anxiety, which is what Amy was mentioning that most people deal with. But I saw a massive change in 1 month on my feelings of irritability, on my sleep. I went from being very wakeful, and when I would wake up at night, my anxiety would hit, bam. It was like immediately I was dealing with racing thoughts and shortness of breath. When I started these products after a month, that was gone. It just wasn't an issue anymore. I didn't have some of the intrusive, scary, worrisome thoughts that had plagued me for so long. And I have not experienced depression. And when I say depression, I don't mean feelings of sorrow that are appropriate for life events or situations where you actually do feel a sense of loss or sadness, but I'm talking about the kind of depression where you're not really sure where it came from and you can't seem to find a way out. I have not felt that since starting these products. So I so appreciate you guys listening to us, and we just want you to know more than anything that if this has been a battle for you, first of all, you're not alone. You're amongst good friends and company who understand how you're feeling. And I also want to say that if you do struggle with feelings of depression and anxiety, reach out to someone, ask for help. There should be absolutely no stigma, since so many of us are dealing with this. So we're here to help. We would love to connect you with someone, whether it's professional or whether it's with the Plexus line of products. And we just appreciate your time tonight.